Welcome to another edition of Jazz Smack Postgame. The final game of the season was played in Minnesota this afternoon, and the Jazz came away with a loss. And with a Washington surprising, shocking, unbelievable win for the Washington Wizards, the Jazz end up with the number one position going into the NBA lottery next month. Let's talk about it.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
So the Jazz did, as was expected, they went to Minnesota. They played a competitive first half. The second half didn't go so well, which has been the case in many of these recent games. But they did play a competitive first half. They kept it close. And then Minnesota pulled away in the second half. It was an interesting game from that standpoint. You know, it was certainly a watchable game. If you haven't watched it yet, go back and give at least the first half a view, because it was reasonably close and reasonably tight. And the Jazz did play hard. In that first half, they certainly played hard. But they ultimately lost the game. And with the surprising win for the Wizards today, you know, the Jazz now are in sole possession of that worst record in the NBA, which means they now have the number one position going into the lottery. So now it's up to luck. I mean, we'll see what happens with that, but it's up to luck. But in terms of today's game, I want to mention Brice Sensabaugh specifically, because Brice scored over 20 points again, and he's stringing together many of these good output games where he's scoring the ball, he's shooting it reasonably well, he's shooting them from three really well, he's adding some assists, some rebounds, and it's really positive. And hopefully going into this offseason, that gives Brice some momentum where he can actually improve and even come back a better player next year and be a really big contributor next year, because Brice certainly has NBA size. We all do want him to get in better physical condition. We've mentioned that a lot of times, and I still think that applies, where he can, lean down a bit and become quicker on the defensive end. But Brice is trending in the right direction, and his shooting mechanics, he has the nicest looking shot on the team, and I think that the future for him is looking more and more positive as an NBA rotation guy. And so I think those are all positive. That's what I took from the game today and these last few games.
Yeah, let me speak first just specifically about Brice. The other thing I was thinking about over the summer is that, we're going to have the pick from Minnesota, and we're going to have our pick. We have nowhere where it's going to be. It's the worst it's going to be is number 5. We know that. But we could move up in this draft by trading away some of our players in this draft by moving up. We could move up from Minnesota's pick to a higher pick because we got some guys that we both think are going to be traded. I'll tell you, one guy that's never been on our list is Brice Sensabaugh. So Orlando desperately needs scoring, desperately. Now, I think Colin would be a good fit there, but Brice, if Florida is where he grew up, Brice, that'd be an interesting thing for him. So Brice is now like a guy that has some value. Is he going to get you an unprotected first round pick? Of course not. I'm not saying that, but if you want to move up 5 slots in the first round from 20th to 15th or something like that, I think we could get that with him. So he's not only a guy that could be an asset for us down the line, he's a guy that could be a trade asset as well in this draft or in future drafts. And as you said, he's filling out the box score now. Like, everybody was jumping all over Brice for only shooting. He's now getting rebounds. He's assisting the ball, and he showed those skills in the first year. Just for some reason, they went away. So it's really good to see him play this well. I'm very happy for him. I'm very bullish about his chances to stay in the NBA and be a player in the NBA.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about Colin, I think Colin in Orlando is obviously a natural fit because they desperately need scoring from the backcourt specifically. And they have Suggs there. they have, coming off the bench, they have Cole Anthony there. But I think obviously Colin is an upgrade there. It's just a matter of is there a trade there that helps the Jazz, and can salaries match up and everything? Obviously, they have a ton of money invested into Suggs and Banchero, and you have Franz Wagner. I mean, those three guys are consuming a ton of money. So is there a trade there that makes sense for the Jazz? Because obviously, if Colin goes back there to Orlando, I mean, that puts him back closer to home as well, and that's probably a good fit for him to be on a team that needs backcourt scoring desperately, and that seems like a good pairing. It's just that, is there a trade? Are there assets there that the Jazz would like in return? I know one of those guys that's on the bench there is that other German kid, the kid that was Cody's teammate at Colorado, Da Silva, and I'm intrigued by him. I think that guy might be somebody to actually go after as another young guy. But obviously you need more than that, because that's a rookie scale contract, and Colin obviously makes a lot more money than that. So it doesn't work out financially.
Yeah, and I don't know their young players either. I mean, Black's there, but honestly, I'm not really interested in Black. I think he's underperforming. I don't think and he's not going to match up in the salaries either. I mean, really, what you're looking is some young assets, but you're going to have to match the salaries and then draft picks. And we have to keep in mind that if Colin goes there, that's a better team. I mean, it's already a great defensive team, and it's got some talent on it. What they really need is efficient offensive scorers, and that's what Colin is. And so, what if you packaged up Brice and Colin there? That's a better team, But so you need to get some draft compensation back, but it would be interesting. And so But back to Brice. Brice is, like a lot of people were thinking, look, this guy's not an NBA player. He's an NBA player. I don't know what level of NBA player, but he's an NBA player that I think will stick around. And now he has some value both for the Jazz and for other teams. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the offseason.
Yeah, very true. So why don't we look at the box score, what exactly took place today, and talk about that briefly. So Brice he scored 22 points, like we said, shot reasonably well, 7 for 17 from the field, 6 for 12 on three, again, shooting the three ball so well. And he also, the 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. I mean, again, he plays nearly 37 minutes tonight because the Jazz only played 8 guys because of the shortened rotation, because they're trying to facilitate that last loss. And so Brice got huge minutes today. I mean, there are only 2 people that played more than him. Keontae played the entire game, and Svi played 39 minutes as well. So Brice got huge minutes, and he produced. High scorer on the team. He's filling out the box score. Good for Brice.
Wow, I didn't notice that. Keontae played 48 minutes. What the heck? Why?
Yeah, well, it's because it's because he was playing so well.
Yeah, I am just I am look, Svi can play point guard. He's not going to pass it, but neither does Keontae. So it's kind of like a wash, right? And Jaden Springer is a quasi point guard. He's more of a combo guard, but all these guys are, right? So that's interesting. Maybe he just had a deal with Hardy. I don't know. But, the guy I want to make a note on before you get to some is Rudy really dominated Flip on the boards today. But there's a couple of games in a row where, in this game, in the first quarter, he took Gobert to the above the break 3, dribbled in and then pulled back out and nailed it. This is like a guy 6'11" doing that. In the last game, I saw him where he got bumped on one side and he did an escape dribble through his legs. It was just seamless, like a guard would do, right? I mean, the sort of thing that you develop over time by playing a ton of basketball. And this guy did it. He keeps showing these skills that we saw in honestly the summer league, which was kind of like the head scratcher, like how did this guy drop to the second round? Because he's like a, almost a true 7-footer with tons of guard like skills, and he keeps showing that. So yeah, he got hammered by Gobert on the boards today. But still, like, good box score, right? I mean, a good box score today, other than his rebounds. He had 3 assists and he had 2 blocks. The guy who can't play any defense had 2 blocks. So I continue to be impressed by this man and his skill set. I am just like so bullish on what this guy's going to do in the years to come.
Yeah. So Kyle did finish with 15 points on 6 of 13 shooting, and he had he had a decent night, but decent day. But I mean, the Jazz got clubbed on the boards today. I mean, they lost they just got totally crushed on the boards. And Minnesota also blocked quite a few shots, and most of those blocks were against Keontae George, unfortunately. I don't know how many times Keontae got blocked today, but it was several. So, and that's why Keontae ends up at 6 for 23 from the field, because, well, yeah, it's just what it is. I mean, it's not like this is anything new. This is kind of, if Keontae plays 48 minutes, he's definitely, almost assuredly going to end up with the most shot attempts on the team, considering the 8 guys who did play, and Jaden Springer only played 6 minutes. The box score is what it is. It's the last game of the season, and so next year we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with the coaching staff this summer and the personnel that we have next year. I mean, there's obviously going to be some roster turnover, and we don't know who's going to be here next year exactly. It's going to be an interesting summer. I'm really curious what exactly does take place. And obviously, the first chip that falls is that lottery. The Jazz, just like going into last year, Ainge said, we're going big game hunting. And then that didn't work out, so they changed directions. And I think going into this year, it's not big game hunting that's going to dictate the direction. It's that lottery pick. That lottery pick is going to dictate what they do. They're going to see what happens in that, and then they'll decide what they do based on what happens in that lottery. If we come away with Cooper Flag, I think we're going to behave differently than if we come away with the 5th pick.
Yeah, I've been trying to plan that out too, to see if like they're going to go for it next year if they get Cooper Flag. And I honestly haven't come up with an answer whether they will or won't. I don't think they should, honestly, if they get Cooper Flag, because I think they need more. But it wouldn't surprise me, given what Ainge did the first 2 seasons, if he tries to do that, where he says, "Look, we now have a guy. Let's not trade away Lowry." Where I have an issue with taking that strategy is, I honestly think Kyle's a better player, not now, but is going to be a better player than Lowry. And so I feel like you got to move off of Lowry. As much as I like him and he likes Utah, I love all of that, right? But if you're thinking about who's going to be the best player for the team, I think it's going to be Flip. And so I would try to maximize the value with him, but it wouldn't surprise me if they go for it, if they get Cooper Flag. But it'll be really interesting. I mean, it's going to be fun regardless. I mean, if they get the number 5 pick, I agree with you. They're going to tank another season. That's almost a guarantee. They're going to trade away these other guys this offseason and be bad again next year, because you can't do this again next year and not play the guys. I mean, it's just not fair. I mean, Collins should be playing. Lowry should be playing. You just can't do this 2 years in a row unless you get rid of those veterans players.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to my only concern with the whole thing about trading Lowry this summer is, I mean, he had such a horrific year. I mean, like, just his year was just terrible. I mean, it was just bad. So I think they got to rebuild. I don't think they can trade him until sometime in the following season after he gets off to a good start, and I hope that he does get off to a good start. If he has a good first half of the year and then they trade him before the trade deadline where he has value again, I think that's a better. I mean, unless somebody makes some crazy offer, I mean, who knows? But unless somebody makes some crazy offer, I just don't see that coming, though, because he's getting paid a ton of money now. And that year that he just put in was just lousy. And we know that he has a history of not playing games. Obviously, he was sitting this year because the Jazz are trying to lose, but all those previous seasons too. I mean, the number of games that Lowry plays just is not a lot of games. I mean, he's missing 25, 30% of every season he's played on average.
Yeah, and I'm not going to argue with or disagree with you. We've talked about this enough. You could very well be right. The only thing that I'm hoping for is that teams think his performance this year was due to his circumstances and not due to Lowry. And that could be. Like if you're Lowry or any of these guys, right? It's really hard to get motivated when you're trying to lose, the coach keeps pulling you, etc. And will teams just kind of overlook it? His salary has gone way up. So that makes it harder to trade. And now you're going to have to match salaries. So, it's like, okay, Ainge, why didn't you trade him? But it was interesting. Like Golden State lost at home today to the Clippers. And if you're Golden State and you have Curry for a few more years and you have Jimmy Butler for a few more years, you've got to go for it. Now, I think, in Golden State, like in the Bay Area, they all think they're going to win it again, right? But realistically, I don't think they are. And so they're at this crossroads of they don't want to pay Kuminga. We don't want to pay Kuminga either. But, if you're trying to like stretch it out and say, let's go for it one more time, a guy like Lowry actually fits perfectly with them, because he's the perfect guy. He doesn't have to create his shots on that team. He just needs to stand out there and nail three-pointers in a hurry, and that's what he does. And so we'll see. Like you're probably dead on right. I'm not saying that, but maybe there's a team out there that just kind of discounts this season as being like anybody in this circumstance would have played poorly this season. I hope, because I don't want to go into next season and be sitting players like we did this season. It's not fair to them.
Yeah, I don't want to sit through this again either. I think it's not good. It's terrible. It's terrible to treat the players like this. I mean, it's lousy for the franchise. It's lousy for the fans. It's lousy for the players as well. I mean, it's one thing if you're developing young guys because those are the guys you have. It's another thing if you're sitting guys who are obviously better and then developing young guys. I mean, obviously the Jazz would have a much better record had they played Lowry, had they played John Collins, had they played Colin all year, and Walker too, because they're sitting Walker now. And now at the end of the season, I don't know what they're saying is wrong with Isaiah, but I think they're sitting him because Isaiah's better than the alternative they could have put out there, and they didn't want to win. So it's just, the Jazz have to get away from this. Yes, it would be great if the NBA addressed the issue next year too, to like the whole tanking thing. But I just don't want to. I don't want to sit through this again. I don't think that anybody else wants to sit through this again. So let's hope the Jazz can do something so where we don't have to sit through something like this again. Just watch all the veteran players who are better sit out game after game after game. I don't want to see Colin do this. I don't want them to do this to Colin yet again. I mean, good grief. It's just rough.
Yeah, Colin, it's John Collins, it's like it's a bunch of them, and it's just not fair to those. They have a limited time period in their career, and it's not fair to them. I mean, it's not fair to the fans. It's not fair to them. Let them go and try to play, and it's not what they make, right? But they're also playing for their next contract, and what Danny Ainge did to these guys this year is not fair to them. It's wrong. Now, I understand the strategy, but it's wrong. You could have lost and still traded those guys away. So let's trade those guys away and give them an opportunity to go and win somewhere or be productive and do what they do because they're that good of basketball players you should watch. And like we won 17 games this season. I saw this. It was one of the guys on ESPN, or maybe it was the guy who was fired by ESPN for salary dump and Lowe, who still does, some podcasting or whatever. But they were doing their rankings of like the power rankings of teams, and the Jazz were coming in last. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, look, based upon their records, that's fine. But if the Jazz were playing their whole team this year trying to win, they'd have at least 10 more wins in this season. I mean, they for half the season they didn't play their best players consistently night in and night out. I mean, they're a much better team than they showed. but this was a strategy we wanted to play. And so, we could be a lot better if we wanted to. It's just sad that this is how we ended up. So that's what I got on that. I wanted to say one thing when you're done going through the box score. I wanted to bring up Keontae.
Okay. Well, speaking of Keontae did go. Keontae went 6 for 23 from the field, 0 for 8 from the 3-point line, 2 for 3 on free throws, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 4 turnovers. So he scored 14 points on the 6 for 23 from the field and 3 free throws. So obviously Keontae did not have a good final game of the season, and you could tell it was getting to him in that second half. He was really dogging it, on defense and everything else. So this is not the way to go into the offseason for him, and it would have been a lot better had he had a really nice last game, but he didn't. So obviously Keontae is not the starting point guard of the Jazz future. We don't know if Isaiah Collier is that guy yet. We like what we see from him, but what I think can be said with certainty at this point is Keontae is not that guy, and even Hardy must realize that now, and Ainge certainly knows that. And so hopefully, we shift away from anybody advocating for that, because that's obviously not the case.
I wonder if Hardy knows. This is a guy who just played 48 minutes in his final game, but maybe he was saying look, this is your final game as a Jazz player. Maybe Hardy realizes that, and that's why he did it. I have no idea. But what I wanted to say about Keontae this year versus last year. So I just, on NBA.com, I just pulled up his stats. This year, he's 39.1% from the field. Last year, he was 39.1% from the field. So, the criticism of Keontae last year was he needs to be a more efficient basketball player. He improved absolutely 0 overall on his field goal attempts. On 3-point field goal percents, he went up to 33.4 last year to 34.3 this year. Now, the thing I want to point out on that is, remember at the last part of last season, probably the last 20 games, Keontae got really frustrated because everyone was being aggressive with him. He really struggled the last part of the season. So when you look at his field goal percentage last year, it really went down at the end of the season. And so that's what caused it to dip to 33.4. I honestly don't know if he did shoot better this year. He shot more 3-pointers, but I'm not sure you could really say the 0.9% is better, because if you take away, where he just lost his legs a lot like Flip, and everybody was pounding on him last year and criticizing him, his 3-point percentage would have been better last year. So his assists went up. His turnovers have gone down since he's gone to the bench. Give him tons of credit for that. His rebounds have gone up. Give him tons of credit for that. His rebounds have been better since he's been on the bench. But what really was the Keontae issue was efficiency in scoring. Do you see it? Can he improve year 3? Of course. Right? But year 2 was not an improvement, at least not in my opinion.
Yeah. The two areas that I think he did improve, the assist to turnover ratio. Obviously, he has more assists this year, but his minutes went up, and his turnovers stayed about the same. So his assist to turnover ratio improved. It's a little over 2-to-1 now, barely over 2-to-1, and it wasn't 2-to-1 last year. And also his free throw attempts went from 3 to 4.3, which is a significant percentage jump in only 4.5 minutes per game more playing time. So those two areas, but his field goal percentages, all of his percentages, the free throw percentage went down by 3%. The 3-point percentage went up by 0.9, and his overall field goal percentage is exactly the same. So, it's yes, I'll give him credit. He improved on the defensive end, but he's still one of the poorest defenders at that position in the NBA. It's not like he's average defender. He's still below average. So I don't want to pile on Keontae on the last day of the season where he had a really bad game. But we aren't trending in the right direction. That's for sure.
Yeah, and our postseason analysis we're going to do a take. We're going to split into different, or we talk about a player. We're going to compare it against peers. We're going to look at their advanced statistics. We're going to show this, for Keontae. So I haven't looked at them in a while, but your theory is he's a below average defender. My theory is he's one of the worst defenders in the league still, based upon his advanced statistics. But we'll look at it, to be fair about it. So, and I firmly believe this. Most of defense, most of rebounding is effort. There's some guys that are incredibly skilled at it, incredibly skilled defensive player, quick hands, all of that. But most of it is effort. And that's really kind of the issue, is that the effort's not there. But, the season's over. If I'm not as optimistic as you that Hardy gets it, but Ainge does get it. So we'll see what happens during the summer and off season for him, or next season for him.
Yeah. The other person I want to point out in this final box score is our guy Oscar Tshiebwe. This guy just cracks me up. I just don't even understand it. He plays 24 and a half minutes, and he goes 7 for 8 from the field, 4 for 5 from the free throw line, and he gets 12 rebounds, 4 offensive, and 2 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. And so he scores 18 points. He's the second highest scorer behind Brice. And he was actually a +8 on the plus minus. He and Brice were the only 2 people on the team with a plus on the plus minus. So, I mean, I really like Oscar. I hope we actually see more. I hope they take Oscar. I kind of hope they take Oscar to the summer league. I know he's obviously an older player, but still, I like Oscar, and I like watching the effort. I mean, I appreciate the effort. I mean, he's limited skill. He's not a great athlete, but he always puts forth effort, and he has a unique ability to get rebounds, which is a useful skill.
Yeah, I made this comment about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I didn't think you were as bullish on it as I am. Honestly, I would invest in Oscar. Like, there's no way I'd let this guy go. I would sign him. You don't have to give him a big contract. He doesn't deserve a big contract. But I would sign him because his energy, his attitude, and his unique skill to rebound, to me, are worth having him on your team. Like, if you need to go and just bust the butt and like set an example where the rest of your team isn't, you throw Oscar in there and he'll play hard. He was getting rebounds away from Gobert. I mean, It was like fun to watch because Gobert's been on a tear. I mean, he's been like rounding into playoff shape, has looked really well. Rudy's looked really great. And honestly, now that we're not getting their lottery pick, I'm rooting for him because of Mike and Rudy. I hope they do well now in the playoffs. But Oscar is a keeper. And honestly, I just really hope the coaching staff works on him and see if they can develop some offensive skills on him. Because if he develops that, even if he develops it at 28 or 29, a guy like that's not based upon athletics, this guy may be able to play till 35, 36 years old, right? So let's see if we can hang on to him and invest in him. Some of these other guys that with the great athletic ability, we've seen what they have. I would just let them go. To me, Oscar's your guy you bet on. And you probably listen to the away announcers too, like we always do, to hear a different perspective than, the local perspective. We always hear the local perspective. We want to hear the away perspective. Is that the Minnesota, like I remember they were like saying, yeah, Tshiebwe got another rebound. They just like are amazed too. Like he's grabbing everything. It's incredible. He just he's a hustler. He's a hustler. Doesn't matter the athletic ability. He's a hustler.
Yeah, I did listen to the Minnesota announcers. Jim Peterson's been doing the color analysis for the T-Wolves games forever. I mean, and he's still doing it. And I don't know if you even remember Jim Peterson. He was like that power forward that played for the Rockets back in the Olajuwon Sampson days with the big knee pads. He wore big knee pads, those 80s era knee pads. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So those are my comments on the box score tonight, I think Johnny put in good minutes and shot the ball well again. Svi shot the ball well tonight. Micah shot the ball reasonably well tonight. So overall, I think it was a positive outing because the Jazz played it competitive, and they certainly played it hard in that first half. Minnesota came out with some more energy in the second half on the defensive end, especially kind of disrupted things, and Anthony Edwards got it rolling, and they pulled away. But for the final game of the season on the road, I think that it ended reasonably well. I mean, the only real downside of that game was what Keontae did, or what he didn't do. So, but we'll see. But that's all I have for this game specifically.
Yeah, I don't have anything for this game either. Do you want to look at the tankathon quickly?
Yeah, I might as well look at the final tankathon. So these are the final results. The Jazz have the number 1 position, Washington number 2, Charlotte number 3, New Orleans number 4, Philadelphia number 5, Brooklyn number 6, San Antonio number 7, Toronto number 7, San Antonio number 8, Phoenix that goes to Houston at number 9, then Portland and Miami and Dallas, Chicago, and Sacramento, which goes to Atlanta. Those are the lottery teams.
Yeah. There was one thing I wanted to bring up after watching. I watched the end of the Washington game because it was relevant to us, and I was just very curious. And they had like a 10-point lead and then lost it. And then they won on a last-minute, lucky throw-up shot by Carrington. But the comment I wanted to have about that team is that I watched that game, and I'll tell you, Carrington has a ton of offensive one-on-one skills. If I were Washington, I'd be really excited about it. Now, I don't know if he's going to be able to do it efficiently, but there were multiple times in that game that he just took the player. They knew he was going to shoot it, and he was able to create his own shot. He's long, he's big. We've heard positive things about him. I have not watched him much this year, but I was quite impressed. And of course, it's got to translate into offensive, like one-on-one skills to efficiency. But I think they got a player there, so I'd be pretty. Washington finally did it right? They're finally doing it right. They traded away Beal. They started over. Now they got some assets to work with. Sarr has played better throughout the season. He's looking better, right? And so they're going to get a top 6 pick at worst this offseason, and they got some guys to build around. So I'd be pretty excited if I were a Wizards fan, given that they've had this history of just they've never been good, right? Coaches, so I'd be pretty happy if I were a Washington fan.
Yeah, that franchise just got one bad apple after another, and if you get bad culture, it's hard. You got to eliminate that bad culture. And they had John Wall, trouble. They had Bradley Beal, trouble, and then they shipped off Kuzma as well. And I was I root for Kuzma because he's from the U of U, from the state of, he played college basketball in the state of Utah, but Kuzma had to go too. So you got to start over. I think bringing in the veteran guy from Milwaukee, even though he's on the downward side, he's a really good guy though, good locker room guy, and they just need to shift culture. That if you get off track and get the wrong guys in, you just got to cut ties. And Washington didn't do that. They kept on betting on guys that you don't even want on your team. And they bet big. John Wall got a huge contract. Bradley Beal got a huge contract. Kuzma got a big contract. You just don't want those guys. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I hope that some of these teams have been bottom dwellers forever can actually start making progress and moving up. We've seen some positive steps from Detroit, certainly this season. I think it actually helped that Jaden Ivey got injured, sadly, but I think that actually helped that team. So we'll see what happens. With some of these guys who've been bottom dwellers forever, and hopefully they don't remain bottom dwellers forever, because you just don't want the guys the same teams year after year after year picking in the top 10. I mean, it's just not good for the NBA. It needs to there needs to be some flow to it where the bad teams become good and some of the really good teams have to take a step back and rebuild. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Yep, I agree with that. But I just wanted to say one positive thing about a team that has struggled this year, has had a tough. Like, look, I think they need to knock out Poole too. Like, he's the guy they should not have traded for. But otherwise, I like their young team. I really do. And they're going to have a top draft pick this season too. And so hopefully they do something with it. That fan base certainly deserves it. They've suffered much longer than we have. So They deserve it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we will call it quits on this final post-game broadcast until Summer League comes. We'll do some Summer League stuff, but I mean, obviously we'll be on here doing some other things, and we'll certainly be on Lottery Night. That's obviously a massive night for the future of the Jazz franchise if we get lucky. So we will talk to everybody later, and for those watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And also, you can follow us on X at Jazz Smack, and we will talk to everybody later.